It's time for Chess Chest!
What?
No, 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 no.
Chest chest.
Well, welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video, and welcome to another Chess Chest video. I really enjoyed doing this one recently, where I actually talked about the chess game that existed and was filmed in Blade Runner. Ridley Scott, I guess, was a pretty big chess aficionado, and he decided to show a real chess game that was kind of a major plot point in Blade Runner. Similarly, and what we're going to do now, and you've seen the thumbnail, we're going to do the chess game from 2001: A Space Odyssey. There's a very significant little scene where Frank Poole is one of the astronauts aboard the Discovery spaceship. He's playing against HAL, the 9000 computer that's on board the ship. And there's a really cool little moment where HAL wins the chess game, spoiler, but it's got a little bit of controversy. There's some people who are like, HAL cheated in that game. And so we're going to kind of discuss that in general, talk about the real chess game. This one's going to be a little longer than the Blade Runner one because I'm actually going to play the full chess game for you. It was much like the one from Blade Runner. This one was based on a real game. It was between Roche and Schlage, and it was played in the the German chess tournament championship in Hamburg in 1910. So it's a real chess game, and it has a real ending, and that's what HAL does. He, I guess, Stanley Kubrick was quite a big chess fan, and he decided he was going to include a real chess game in there, and it's a queen's sacrifice, much like the Blade Runner game, and it shows kind of this moment between human and computer and how the computer outsmarts him, but is very apologetic about it. I don't think HAL's going to be that apologetic to me. However, I've got Frank's moves written down in here, so I'm going to be moving them, and for those who are wondering, how are you getting a HAL 9000? Well, I actually have HAL right here. I've done a video about this already. This is the Iris 9000. We're going to make this HAL today. It's going to be a lot of fun, so let's try playing HAL and the game of chess. All right, here we are with HAL, ready to play that actual game. I'm going to refer to myself as Frank and HAL as the other team, even though it is those other guys from the 1910 game. But for the sake of this chess game, let's refer to myself as Frank and HAL playing the black team. So, first move, Frank decides to open, as per usual. That pawn always seems to go to the first move. Pawn to king 4. So let's see what HAL's next move is.
Pawn to king 5.
All right, so we move pawn to king 5. Now you're going to notice, any real chess experts are going to notice something right away. Let's play through the game as it was in the film. So Frank plays knight to king's bishop 3.
Knight to queen's bishop 6.
Knight to queen's bishop 6. So Frank does a pretty radical move. He goes bishop to queen's knight 5.
Pawn to queen's rook 6.
HAL does pawn to king's rook 6, which already puts that bishop in a bit of trouble. Frank does the only sensible thing. Bishop to queen's rook 4.
Knight to king's bishop 6.
Okay, knight to king's bishop 6. Standard opening, very good. Frank brings out queen to king 2.
Pawn to queen's knight 5.
Okay, so he's applying more pressure to that bishop by bringing out his pawn. So Frank does what anybody should do, bishop to queen's knight 3.
Bishop to king 7.
Okay, HAL brings out bishop to king 7. Frank does pawn to queen bishop 3.
Kingside castle.
HAL decides to castle at this point. A move I haven't really got to in chess, but it's a known thing. Frank follows suit by also castling on his side.
pawn to queen 5.
Hal brings a pawn out to queen 5. Frank decides to make him pay, so he takes the pawn.
Knight takes pawn.
Okay, this is one of the limitations of this version of how to call out your moves as a descriptive annotation, and you got to think, well, which pawn is he talking about? However, there's only one pawn or one knight that can take a pawn, so that's this one. Frank loses a pawn. So Frank follows suit by taking the other pawn.
Knight to king's bishop 4.
Hal takes this knight, moves him to king's bishop 4. Frank does a little bit of a clever move here. He decides to fork a couple of pieces from Hal by moving his queen here. See, now this knight and the rook are in trouble. What are you going to do, Hal?
Knight takes knight.
Well, again, which one? But there is only one that applies to, so this knight takes this knight. Frank decides, well, you've given up your rook then. I'm taking it. Off she goes. Now, that was actually a dumb move. It seems straightforward as a chess player, but that was actually kind of a dumb move. And a lot of people talk about how this was an indication that Frank wasn't a very good player. He really should have moved the queen to here instead and actually threatened Hal's queen. But he went for the rook. And that was sort of an interesting play. I guess that's what many of us would have done in that situation. He shouldn't have, though.
Queen to queen 3.
So Hal goes on the offensive. He brings a queen to queen 3. He's now attacking all of Frank's pieces. Frank decides, oddly, to do bishop to queen 1.
Bishop to king's rook 3.
So this bishop comes out to king's rook 3. And this is where the movie starts. This is where we've got Frank going, so, God, what am I going to do? All that kind of stuff. So Frank is going, all right, I don't know. Queen takes pawn. Yeah, okay. So he does. Hal follows up with bishop takes knight's pawn, meaning this guy over here takes this pawn right here, placing a lot of pressure on Frank. What the heck are you going to do? And for some reason, Frank decides, well, the bishop is going to take the rook, so I guess I'll move, or, this rook is under a lot of pressure, both from the queen and from the bishop. Before Hal moved him in there, the ability was there. If the queen was to take the rook, then at least the king could take the queen without too much concern. But now that this bishop is sitting here, there's no way to do that. So Hal thinks, okay, well, no problem. I'll move the rook. So rook to king 1. To which Hal says, I'm sorry, Frank, I think you missed it. Queen to bishop 3, which, that's putting a heck of a lot of pressure on Frank. So the only thing you can do, bishop takes queen. Haha, Frank is thinking to himself, victory. But then Hal rolls in with knight takes bishop. Mate. And it is. The king can't move anywhere. This guy can't be attacked. He's about to take the king. That's checkmate. And that's the move from the game. Now, there are certain problems with this game. First of all, Frank made a move up there that was very silly. Instead of moving the queen up to take that rook, should have placed it here in order to apply pressure to the queen. But not only that, there have been a lot of chess experts who have talked about, there's certain problems with this game, among which Hal is using the descriptive annotation, which is fine. In the 60s, maybe that was still very much in use. But he's using it flipped and reversed. Like here, he talked about, bishop to king 7 or whatever. And he's referring to, this one here, bishop to king, or no, it was bishop takes pawn. Regardless, when you're using descriptive annotation, these are the numbers going your direction, and these are the numbers going your direction. So let's say, for example, this game is not over. Let's say Hal wants to move this bishop from what he would call in this case, king's 7. Let's say he wanted to move it to this square here. He would say bishop 6 in the film. But in his version, when he's looking at the screen, at the board, that's actually King 2, and that is Bishop 3 for him. So there were a lot of experts in the game going, why is HAL broken already? He's not thinking the correct terminology. He's viewing the board from Frank's point of view? That's never done. Now, I think that's a minor little hiccup because you're talking about being able to make it translatable for the audience. So maybe Kubrick was just thinking, no, we'll just keep it all from Frank's point of view. HAL is a smart enough computer that he'll flip the table and not use descriptive annotation the accurate, correct way, but instead say, well, your board says that this is actually, from your point of view, Frank, this is actually Bishop 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, this is Bishop 6. So that's what I'm going to call it, even though from the correct point of view, HAL should say Bishop 3. Bishop 3. So this is one of the first hints that maybe there's something wrong with HAL. So again, just another look at the board in this contentious move, because this is something a lot of chess experts get angry about. Frank goes Bishop to King 1. And HAL's response is Queen to Bishop 3, Bishop takes Queen, Knight takes Bishop, mate. But this is technically Queen to Bishop 6 from HAL's point of view. So a lot of people have been like, wait a minute, Bishop to Queen 6 would be over here. And then there's a lot more to the game. So is HAL defective by saying Queen to Bishop 3 instead of Queen to Bishop 6? No, this is the way I think Kubrick was intending for people to view it from from Frank's point of view. When he said Queen to Bishop 3, he meant Queen to Bishop 6, and not that the Queen would actually go backwards and sit on Bishop 4, actually, Queen to Bishop 4. So yeah, there's no way for HAL to move the Queen to Bishop 3 from his point of view. When he says Queen to Bishop 3, he means it from Frank's point of view, this square here, because that does end the game. Again, a lot of people argue that, and it's sort of, people think, oh, that's a good sign that HAL was actually defective. I mean, he was certainly defective, but for different reasons. There you go. There is the chess game from 2001, A Space Odyssey. Frank versus HAL. Roche versus Schlage. What else can I say? So, a couple of things people might be pointing out, the real chess fans out there. My board here, which I've done a video about, is etched glass, and depending on if it's sitting on a white surface, which it was for some of that sequence, and if it's hanging over the edge, because it was also doing that, the corners might look white or they might look black. You might be yelling at the camera, hey, you made it so that the white is not on the right-hand side of the board, the correct orientation for the board. Yes, I had white on the right, so do not be worried about that. Besides, we're talking the moves here. Secondly, I intentionally made the entire readout there from HAL as being the Frank's perspective, Frank's point of view. That's how I think that whole scene, had we been there for the entire chess game, I think that's how HAL was going to be reading it out. He would have been saying to Frank things like, Queen to King 6, instead of his point of view being Pawn to King 3, that kind of thing. I think this whole sequence was filmed as HAL trying to explain to Frank from Frank's numbering from 1 to 8. That's the way it did. So basically I had HAL in that bit just now saying the entire game using that notation. Ergo, when he says, Bishop takes Queen or Knight to Bishop 3, that whole ending, it is accurate to if HAL is looking at this is square 1 and that is square 8, which is not the correct notation. And that's what a lot of people talk about. They're like, HAL was cheating in chess. He was calling out the wrong numbers. I don't think he was. I think this was actually partially done from Frank's point of view. Also, and this is kind of my final point, that sequence, when it was filmed, remember he's looking down on a digitized scoreboard or chessboard, and when they were writing the script, they may have just quickly done a bit of, like these scenes are filmed one way, and then they go to the recording studio for Douglas Rain, who did the voice of HAL, to actually do all the lines. And I don't know if it was Kubrick's fault or somebody may have just said, look, this is the bottom of the screen. On the film sequence, the bottom of the screen is where the low numbers are going to be. The top of the screen is where the high numbers are going to be. And so therefore, we wrote it this way. Douglas Rain read it out. And now that you look at the sequence, I mean, it's amazing that they actually match up at all. The only snag is in that sequence, the writing and the script says the notation the wrong way. But it's kind of one of those controversies. It's ironic that I'm bringing this up as also connected to Blade Runner, because we all know, and I'm talked to death about that, did Ridley Scott always intend for Deckard to be a replicant? Similarly, a lot of people look at this chess game and they wonder, was Stanley Kubrick trying to leave a little hint to the crowd that actually HAL was already broken because he's calling out the wrong moves? I mean, that might have been going on. Only Stanley will know, and many people, I've done some research on this, many people have talked about it. Only Kubrick knows exactly what was going on there, and unfortunately he took it to his grave. So we won't really know, but I figure, you know what, I think they were just angling the board with Frank's point of view. These are the low numbers, therefore the moves that we hear HAL say are correct. And, again, it's based on a real 1910 chess game. So, all the arguments aside, sure, Frank made the mistake of moving his queen up there instead of, trying to take out that piece. But other than that, I think it's kind of based on a real chess game, and therefore we have to follow what the real chess game said. Anyway, so that's for those conspiracy theorists who are out there who are saying, HAL was cheating the whole time. You didn't show that. I find it fascinating, and honestly, it was a dream come true for me to play chess against HAL. What a great moment. I really love that. Hope you enjoyed it too. Will there be more? I mean, there are a couple of other chess games in famous movies. I don't know if I'll be able to grasp them as well, but maybe we'll see. I hadn't really thought of continuing the chess series, but that Blade Runner one did quite well. Maybe people will watch this, and maybe I'll do even more. Maybe we'll do the one where Kurt Russell is playing chess in the movie It. Anyway. Until next time, not It, The Thing. See, I almost caught myself out there. Yes, until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.
Cheating bitch.